So you're me in 30 years.
It's hard staring into your eyes. It's too strange.
Your face looks backwards. Do you know what's gonna happen? You done all this already? As me?
I don't want to talk about time travel.
We both know how this has to go down. So why don't you do what old men do and die?
Why don't you just take your little gun out from between your legs and do it, boy?
Looper is not a film about time travel. It's a movie that uses time travel to set up a situation that then plays out. This film is so great that it virtually cannot be compared to any other film of the same genre. If you haven't seen it, I must certainly urge you to do so, because it is just so good and that worthy of your money. Appropriately titled Looper, this film surprisingly doesn't have any loopholes, or none that anyone has figured out. Directed by Rian Johnson of his previous hit Brick in 2005, Looper stars Hollywood rising actor Joseph Gordon-Levitt or Premium Rush as Joe, and veteran action hero Bruce Willis of the critically acclaimed Die Hard film series as Old Joe. Undoubtedly, the topic of time travel is one that is rarely touched upon in films, only because it can get so intricate to the point where the story is cluttered with many subplots that there is no clear direction for the narrative to head to. A perfect example of this would be the 2004 movie Primer. This is unless of course the writer or director is truly fluent and completely clear about what he wants to do with the story. In this instance, Rian is both the writer and director of Looper. As such, regarding the plot, I shall touch on it only briefly as I'll leave it to Rian himself to explain it magically as its whole. Johnson begins the film by getting straight to the point of what Loopers do. Kill! The film revolves around a world where time travel is outlawed, used only by criminal organizations to send criminals back into the past to be killed by loopers, such that their younger self is dead and hence they themselves no longer exist in the future. As loopers are paid and contracted to do this, failure to complete their tasks result in a death penalty. Joe is one such looper, and when his older self is sent to him to be killed, drama unfolds. Amidst the action in some of the fight sequences, Bruce's performance is reminiscent of his role as John McClane in the Die Hard franchise when he goes solo and fends off armed assailants with a machine gun. Dubbed as the Matrix of the 21st century, Looper clearly holds immense potential which Johnson manages to stretch fully. It is based on an original 3-page screenplay that Johnson wrote years ago, which was originally intended for a short film.
I wrote this script originally as a 3-page short about 10 years ago. I wrote it a few years before we made Brick.
Now I will move on to film crafts. I will touch on mise-en-scène and editing. For mise-en-scène, what struck me most was the makeup aspect of it. As the movie revolves around Joe meeting Old Joe, the process of Joe getting older requires Joseph to put on a lot of makeup. Thus, the painstaking effort the filmmakers put in to convince viewers that Joe resembles Old Joe can be seen. When Joe gets older and older, there is visibly more difference as the makeup becomes thicker. Fortunately, Joe still manages to look believable. As the movie uses time travel, this aspect of mise-en-scène applies very relevantly in terms of time. Next, the final scene where a young boy creates a telekinetic blast in a farm touches on the setting aspect of mise-en-scène. As Looper was made on a very low budget, Rian must have put in a lot of the money into this scene in order to create that effect. Sid, who will come to be known as the future antagonist in the film, brings about a storm when the conflict involving Old Joe starts to affect him. It is the setting in this scene that helps set the final mood of the film and brings the story to a conclusion. This aspect of setting applies in space as it's a white scene in the film, and together with makeup, mise-en-scène is a very important film craft in Looper. Lastly, I will move on to editing. I will focus on flash forward in temporal editing and cross-cutting in spatial editing. As Joe meets Old Joe and the situation gets messy, the process of seeing each other and the aftermath that follows is a form of both flash forward and cross-cutting. Old Joe is what Joe becomes when Joe reaches that age, and the fact that they both come together makes use of flash forward within cross-cutting. Next, as Joe failed to kill Old Joe, the organization he works for immediately comes after him to terminate him. Hence, the action scenes that follow as Joe's leaders hunt him down while Joe tries to escape and solve the problem makes full use of cross-cutting. Therefore, the use of editing is extremely important in Looper as it keeps the plot moving and helps the viewer understand the story. In conclusion, though the idea of time travel is not new, it is hard to impress as the notion of rewriting the future comes into picture. Also, the line between time travel and non-linear storytelling, as seen in the likes of Pulp Fiction, inevitably begins to blur in a science fiction genre. For the general moviegoer, Looper is a mental exercise and a mystery to unravel. The impressive and realistic visuals will serve to keep viewers busy as our minds constantly ponder about the plot's narrative. Looper is a smack in the face for film critics complaining that Hollywood lacks creativity and does not have anything new to offer, making big bucks only by sequels and remakes of other blockbusters. A sleeper hit like action flick The Red Redemption, Looper emulates Prometheus and Men in Black 3 hands down as the best sci-fi action thriller of 2012.